This is our bridging lesson. We did it on Me on the Map by Daisy Mojaras, Gabby Ruiz Mesa, and Sean Shoemaker.
Join el mapa. Essential questions. What is a map and a globe, and where do I live in them? How can you find your way around? Typically, this lesson is done in the spring of kindergarten and in the fall in first grade. This lesson focuses on students meeting geography standards in social studies.
Conceptual domain and topic. The social studies unit is taught both in kindergarten and first grade, and in kindergarten, students will be able to identify maps of Idaho in the United States and know that this is where they live, create a map of a familiar place, use a globe to identify north and south poles, land masses, and bodies of water, as well as identify it as a model of the earth, and listen to and discuss and comprehend a story read aloud.
In first grade, students will also be able to identify different types of maps, learn how to use a map and cardinal directions, north, south, east, and west, identify their own state and city on different types of maps, and use the illustrations and details in a text to describe its key ideas.
So in the traditional lesson framework in kindergarten, the teacher would read the book aloud, and then she would stop and ask questions to make sure that the students are comprehending the story. And the outcome would be that students understand where they live, in what city, state, country, and understand what the world is. And students then would draw a picture of their house in a small paper book and color the additional pages. And here's an example of what that would look like. So the child would start with a picture of their house and then the state and the country. And something that's great about this project is that it's quite simple for the kindergarten learner. And then after they do that project, they would bring a picture from home, and from that picture they would create a picture of their house and a picture of their bedroom. And sometimes this was difficult because students wouldn't bring their picture, or they just had a hard time understanding how to do it. So students then would, back in whole group, discuss land masses and bodies of waters, and they would do a sort in whole group using a document that I'll show you in a second. And the pairs would also do a sort and glue it down on the paper. And then the students would talk about what they did for their sort. So here's an example. Teacher and students, oh, go ahead.
Teacher and students will choral read Join el mapa as a whole group. As a class, they will discuss the different types of maps found in the story. Teacher will stop in different places to help students create their own maps, as the group did in the story. The outcome is that students will have a chance of drawing their own map in their own classroom or school using the story illustrations as an example. Another of the activities is that the teacher will read aloud the non-fiction text, El Mapa de Fontana, to build background about their own town. As a whole class, students recreate a map of their own town. The next activity is that the teacher will read Mapas Divertidos to build background about different maps and about cardinal points. Again, we're looking at the east, west, south, and north. And the outcome is that students will be able to identify different maps and to help. In examining the traditional lessons, we see opportunities for expanding the students' learning via the usage of digital tools. One of our main goals is to give students more opportunities to speak and explain their thinking using the digital tools. Since we teach in a dual immersion school, we also want to make sure students have ample opportunities to speak and express themselves. Using the Seesaw digital portfolio, it also gives them an authentic audience, their peers, and their families. By using the social media connection, the teacher is also able to connect to the parents to what is being learned in the classroom. In kindergarten, this lesson is taught in April, when the students have already been exposed to many of the apps that they are used. By this time of the year, they will have already used Seesaw to do many projects. We use Shadow Puppet EDU to retell stories that have multiple pages. We also We also will use cherry picks throughout the year. It is possible that in April, the only new app will be the Sketch app. This activity might need to take place in small groups to make it work effectively and efficiently. Once a few of the students understand how to use the app, they will be able to teach the others. This collaboration is added benefit to using apps in the classroom. Students love to assist others and explain how the app works.
So we went from the traditional to the digital lesson, and then we talk about on this right-hand side the value that was added. So the teacher-led read aloud was the traditional lesson. Students listened to the stories in both English and Spanish for the digital version on iPads. The stories are also saved to Seesaw so they can listen with their families, and students then have multiple opportunities to listen to the story. Originally, we started with a paper book, and we decided to add this Sketch app and Shadow Puppet EDU to create a similar book with little adult help and publish it to Seesaw. So here's an example of how that works.
Yo soy Sean. Aquí está mi casa. Aquí están las ciudades. Aquí está mi estado. Aquí está mi país.
Using different tools to engage students in learning will help the students access learning through different modalities. Apps have the potential to foster more engaging kinds of learning. O'Brien et al., page 6. The student art project, the whole group sharing, and the class book. So students will do the traditional art project. However, they will take a picture of it and include it in a class version of the book recorded on Shadow Puppet EDU. Students read the text aloud. Yo soy, aquí estoy en mi cuarto, and here is an example.
Aquí está mi cuarto. Aquí estoy yo en mi cuarto. Aquí está mi casa. Yo soy Daniela. Aquí estoy yo en mi cuarto. Aquí está mi casa. Yo soy Rick. Aquí estoy en mi cuarto. Aquí está mi casa.
So shy students in class are not comfortable speaking Spanish in front of large groups and sometimes feel more comfortable recording themselves and then sharing with group work. So this is a great way to incorporate many students on a project, and then the shyer students feel less reluctant to participate.
So in this activity, students use chatter picks to introduce themselves to the class using a script prepared by the teacher, and then they share it on Seesaw. And here's an example. And this is Sean's son.
Yo soy Schumacher. Yo vivo en Sun Valley, Idaho. Yo vivo en los Estados Unidos. Yo soy de la tierra.
So students have additional opportunities to speak. Students use digital tools to create a multimodal presentation. Another activity is physical pictures from home. The teacher will ask parents to text or email a picture of the student in front of their house and one of the child in his or her room. Because there is no need to print the picture, it is much faster to receive the pictures for the project. For those students who may not have a mobile device at home, the teacher will arrange to send one home. Another activity is that students will watch a video on maps to learn more about them and obtain a deeper comprehension about maps. The video can also be shared to Seesaw, and so it will be able to be watched at home. Again, students will be exposed to the information multiple times in school during listening, and will have time to read and watch at home via Seesaw. There is also a map sorting activity where students will do the same activity, but will also watch the video about maps. Again, the video can be accessed at home on Seesaw. Students will be exposed to the information multiple times in school during these activities and at home via the Seesaw app.
The next activities also talk about how we can help students with maps. The teacher can use a digital presentation to help build comprehension and vocabulary. She can do a screencast of the presentation to share with families via Seesaw. The slideshow will be used to help increase comprehension as well as build vocabulary. The map sorting activity. After the students do the traditional paper sort, they will take a picture using Seesaw. They will then voice record themselves explaining their sort. This will give students additional time to speak as well as time to check their sort and rationalize their thinking. Maps. After reading the Fontana Maps stories, students will be able to look at their own city through Google Maps. And you can see, as soon as we open this app, how students are able to see their own city via satellite. Students are able to really see the location of places. They can find their school, they can find grocery stores, and it's more, it's a way for them to be able to make connections and really see real life maps of their own town. Students will be able to make connections to their own town and engage in conversations about the places they know.
Being able to collaborate with different modalities will enhance students' learning and understanding. The usage of apps in the classroom provides students with an opportunity to read, negotiate, challenge, and represent disciplinary knowledge and disciplinary practices in ways that have never before been afforded through the traditional print-centric ways. O'Brien et al., page 10. The ability to integrate different modalities in the classroom increases the ways students engage in particular lessons. Using the SAMR models helps us to transform our lessons and expose students to technology that will help them throughout their future. Redesigning print-based assignments into assignments involving uses of digital literacies involves complexities related to students' ability to navigate between different social contexts, as well as the degree to which use of digital tools builds on their interests and needs. O'Brien et al., page 14.
Using the SAMR model of digital lesson design, we can see the new lesson has gone beyond the substitution or augmentation stages, since we can now ask our students to do very different things to demonstrate their learning. We use substitution in the first part of the lesson by providing the digital versions of the story. However, since we linked it to Seesaw and learning centers, it is actually augmentation because the students have multiple exposures to the text. Using Sketch substitutes the traditional creating of an illustration of where the student lives, but also adds engagement and motivation for students. This digital tool affords versatility. Students may start to use these tools in other classes and disciplines. In this way, it really could lead to redefinition. With the combination of Sketch and Seesaw, the original lesson is significantly modified. Students are now using multimodal presentations to illustrate where they live. In addition, they are presenting orally, which will increase their confidence. Since these students are in dual language schools, they need as many opportunities as possible to engage in oral presentation of ideas. They get these opportunities through the use of Seesaw, Shadow Puppet EDU, and Chatterpix as well. Our main objective in this transformation of this lesson was to give students more opportunities to comprehend the lesson and express themselves orally. Through the addition of videos and multimodal presentations, the students received input on the subject in various ways, which hopefully will increase their comprehension of the subject matter. Through the production of the short audio, photo, and video presentations that they will create using the combination of the apps Sketch, Seesaw, Shadow Puppet EDU, and Chatterpix, they will have ample oral language production time to express themselves. Finally, by the use of integration of technology, students will be exposed to meeting many of the ISTE standards and will be preparing themselves as 21st century learners. In the following slides, we just went ahead and listed some of the advantages and disadvantages that we saw in the traditional lesson framework so that we could think about how we could transform it into a digital literacies project. You can go ahead and look at these when you download our presentation. We also included some of the app affordances, advantages, and disadvantages of all of the apps that we used in our presentation. And finally, there's a link to the full paper. Thank you for watching.